Jacob stood by the stone watering trough, the dry earth crunching under the restless hooves of the flock. He pulled a wand of fresh storax from his side and braced it against the rim. With a steady hand, he pressed his knife into the bark. The blade peeled back a thin strip, revealing the stark, white wood beneath. He carved deep, rhythmic lines, creating a sharp contrast against the dark surface. He did not rush. He worked until the wood was marked with bold, deliberate patterns. When he finished, he stepped into the path of the approaching sheep and planted the sticks firmly into the mud. The animals slowed. As they lowered their heads to drink, their eyes locked onto the white stripes. They moved around the wands, their gaze fixed on the stark geometry. In the shadow of the carved wood, the flock gathered and mated. Jacob watched the process, noting how the visual rhythm of the sticks commanded their attention. He knew what would follow. The shepherd's lesson echoed in the quiet of a different room, where a husband and wife stood at the threshold of their own creation. They approached this moment with the cold, calculated precision of an engineer wiring a complex machine. There was no room for error. They consulted the calendar, tracing the cycles of the moon to find a window of positive energy, carefully avoiding the chaotic noise of external discord. The husband moved through the house, closing heavy curtains to block the harsh light and silencing the devices that hummed with static. He cleared the surfaces, removing clutter that might distract the eye or weigh on the mind. The wife sat in the center of the room, practicing the rhythm of her own breath, slowing her heart rate until the air around her felt still. They understood that their internal state was the foundation. They sought a period of total purification, scrubbing their minds of lingering stress and ensuring their bodies were in peak condition. Every action was deliberate. Every movement was measured. They were not merely waiting. They were constructing a vessel of silence. The environment was set. They understood the stakes. The embryo was not merely a biological spark. It was a blank hard drive, spinning in the dark, waiting to record every frequency it encountered. Every sound, every vibration, every flicker of emotion in the room was being written into the foundation of the child. The husband watched the wife, his movements slow, his voice a low hum that barely disturbed the air. If they allowed tension to enter this space, if they permitted a single note of discord to vibrate through their bodies, that data would be etched into the child forever. It was a terrifying thought. A moment of anger, a flash of resentment, or a spike of anxiety would act like a corrupted file, embedding itself into the infant's developing nervous system. They knew that many of the struggles and deformities that haunted a human life were not accidents of fate, but the direct result of a chaotic environment during this initial recording phase. The air in the room grew heavy with the weight of their awareness. They sat perfectly still, guarding the silence, terrified that a single misplaced thought might leave a permanent scar. They were not just creating a life, they were programming a future. The responsibility was absolute. They had to remain clean, clear, and perfectly aligned, because the machine was already running. The infant arrived, a small, breathing testament to the silence they had guarded. When the father first took the child into his arms, he did not move with the frantic energy of a new parent. He moved with a deliberate, rhythmic slowness. He felt the infant's skin against his own, a surface so sensitive it seemed to vibrate with the slightest change in his own heart rate. He began to massage the baby's limbs, applying a steady, calming pressure. He was not just soothing a cry, he was signaling security to a nervous system that was still learning how to exist. He watched the child's eyes, noting how they tracked the tension in his own jaw. If he tightened his grip, the child's breathing hitched. If he softened his shoulders, the child's muscles slackened in response. It was a mirror. The father realized with a jolt that he was no longer an independent actor. Every twitch of his hand, every shift in his posture, was being hardwired into the child's developing form. He became the architect of this reality. He was the frequency. He was the blueprint. The parents knew that excess, even of goodness, diluted the essence of a soul. Like a plant drowning in water or an engine stalling with too much oil, a life without boundaries lost its strength. They set firm guidelines, teaching that quality always outweighed quantity. They watched their own actions, knowing the child mirrored every hesitation. If they remained calm, the child absorbed that peace. They raised the child to view life as a sacred act of creation rather than a pursuit of fleeting pleasure. By maintaining this balance, they kept the child's internal energy sharp and unencumbered by the heavy shells of negative habits. The child grew, moving through the world with a steady, deliberate rhythm. Every interaction became an expression of this internal clarity. The soul functioned in perfect syncopation with the world, no longer reacting to chaos, but creating order. The blueprint was complete, the machine was tuned, and the life moved forward, clear and resonant, exactly as it had been designed to be.